The death of Princess Diana, I mean, for decades now, it's been this mix of grief, mystery, and a whole lot of conspiracy theories. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the story behind the tragedy. We'll use the official reports and even her own words to try and understand what really happened.
It was one of those Sunday mornings that just stopped the world. News started trickling out of Paris, and it was the kind of news that just felt impossible. You could feel a global event unfolding in real time, one that would end up defining an entire era.
And then the official confirmation came. Hearing those words from a source like the BBC, it just sent this massive wave of shock and disbelief across every continent. The most famous woman on the planet was gone. Just like that.
And the grief was just instant. But so were the questions. How could something like this even happen? Was it just a terrible, tragic accident? Or was there something darker, more sinister at play? These are the questions that have been fueling speculation for more than 20 years.
Okay, so to really get a grip on the final chapter of her life, you've got to understand the unbelievable pressure she was under. And honestly, the best way to do that is to look at her private pain, in her own words. And listen to this, in her own words. You can just feel how her mental health struggles were being used against her. She felt like her depression wasn't being seen as a real illness, but more like a weapon to slap a label on her. Unstable, imbalanced, and just dismiss everything she had to say.
It's just heartbreaking how clearly she described her eating disorder. She called it a secret disease, an escape mechanism. It was her private way of coping with pressures that she felt were just completely crushing her, a temporary comfort for a really, really deep pain.
And this, right here, this really gets to the core of it all. She felt so profoundly misunderstood. She knew she was crying out for help, but the signals she was sending, the self-harm, the eating disorder, they were being read all wrong by the people around her, seen as just attention-seeking or instability.
This slide, man, it just perfectly lays out the huge gap between her public life and her private reality. To the entire world, she was living a fairy tale, but behind the curtain, she was dealing with a marriage where her husband said love was whatever in love means, feeling like a third wheel and being totally ashamed that she couldn't cope. All right, so let's shift gears and look at her final day. That internal pressure cooker she was living in, well, it reached an absolute boiling point in Paris, setting off this frantic and ultimately fatal chain of events.
Just take a look at this timeline. From the second they landed, they were completely hounded. They couldn't even go out to a restaurant like they'd planned because the paparazzi were everywhere. That led to this last-second, frantic decision to sneak out the back of the Ritz, an escape attempt that put them on a direct collision course with tragedy, just 3 minutes later.
So of course, after the crash, the theories just exploded. Was it an accident or was it an assassination? The British Metropolitan Police launched this massive investigation. It was called Operation Paget to look into every single claim. Let's see what they found. And this is the big one, right? The question at the heart of almost every conspiracy theory. The idea that Diana, with her new Muslim boyfriend Dodi Fayed, had just become too much of a problem for the British royal family.
I mean, the claims were just wild. Dodi's father was absolutely convinced it was an MI6 plot, and even Diana herself had written a letter expressing this chilling fear that Prince Charles was planning a car accident for her. But after years and years of digging, Operation Paget's final conclusion was that there was just no evidence to back any of it up.
Okay, so naturally, a lot of the focus lands on the guy who was driving, Henri Paul, the head of security at the Ritz. Was he just another tragic victim in all this, or was he a paid agent whose job was to cause the crash?
This table is, wow, it's so fascinating because you can see exactly why he's such a lightning rod for controversy. The official report confirmed he was drunk, like 3 times over the legal limit. Plus, he wasn't even a licensed chauffeur. But the thing that really gets the conspiracy theories going is the money. He had thousands and thousands of pounds in his bank accounts that nobody could ever explain. Still, even with all that, investigators found zero proof he was a spy for MI6.
All right, so what about the paramedics? Another one of these theories that just won't go away is that the crash itself wasn't supposed to be fatal, but that the emergency response was slowed down on purpose. Why did it take so long to get her to a hospital?
But when you look at the investigation, there was a clear medical reason for every single decision they made. The French medical approach back then was all about stabilizing the patient on the scene, not racing to the hospital.
The slow ambulance ride, the choice of hospital, which was further away but had a way better trauma center, those were all deliberate medical choices, not part of a conspiracy.
Okay, but even after all of that, all the official reports, all the investigations, there is one piece of this puzzle that's just missing, and it's the piece that keeps the door wide open for doubt.
Get this. Paint scrapings on the wrecked Mercedes proved that it brushed up against a white Fiat Uno right before it hit the pillar. Witnesses saw this car swerving out of the tunnel and speeding off. To this day, the car and its driver have never been officially found. Then, to make things even weirder, a photojournalist who owned a similar car died by suicide years later. It's the one major loose end that investigators could never, ever tie up.
So, look, the how and why of her death are still debated, right? But what's not up for debate is the incredible impact she had during her life. Let's take a look at the legacy she really left behind.
I mean, just look at that number. 2.5 billion people. That's the estimated number of people who watched her funeral. The scale of that global mourning is almost impossible to wrap your head around. It just shows you how deeply she connected with people everywhere. And her impact was real. It was tangible. In the UK, that huge public outpouring of grief led to something that became known as the Diana effect. For the first time, a lot of people felt like it was okay to seek help for their own grief and mental health, which helped to break down these long-held stigmas. And who could forget what her brother said at her funeral? It was just this stunning takedown of the media pressure that had followed her for her entire adult life. It was a theme that started the day she got engaged and, for so many people, ended in that Paris tunnel.
The conspiracies are definitely compelling. And the mystery, well, it's not going anywhere. But when you step back and look at the whole picture, is her story really defined by those 3 minutes in a tunnel? Or is it defined by the 36 years of a life that completely changed the monarchy and touched billions? I think that's the real question that defines her legacy.